Namaste. Hi, welcome. I'm the Shaman and this is the Mermaid. We're here to bring you your latest astrological forecast, and we're kicking it off with a wolf full moon. Ow! Clearly we practiced that on January 6th, and we'll take you all the way into February of 2023. February 5th will be the Leo full moon. Pretty good.
So didn't even practice.
It's going to be a good lunar cycle here. So we're kicking off with that wolf full moon, which is also the Cancer full moon on January 6th. And we thought this was a quite interesting little lineup of energies. And it's a little microcosm of the whole year of 2023, the macrocosm. So if you can get past this month and flow with it, you'll have a good taste of the next 11 months. And what was our mantra?
Well, we decided to let ourselves get really rooted. So we said, nourish the roots and you'll harvest the fruits. Nourish the roots and you'll harvest the fruits.
Why do you say that?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Because there's a lot of Uranian energy in this. A lot of Aquarius and Uranus, that electrical, sparky, random, sudden, anything goes kind of stuff. I always refer to Uranus as Uncle Uranus, that wild card at the party that you don't know what he's gonna do or what tricks he's gonna pull out of his hat. And there's a lot of that right now. So we feel like getting really grounded is an important piece to start the year off, just setting some solid roots, nurturing the roots. And one of the ways that you can nurture roots is through water. And we have a Cancer full moon, which is the wateriest of the waters, in my opinion, of all three water signs. And it's beckoning us to really nourish or water the roots. The Lakota word for water is miniwachoni, and it means water is life. So that essentially means the essence of life is water. So to nourish or nurture these roots, focusing in on water, and then not so ironically or coincidentally, it's also during this time the year of the water rabbit. On the new moon that we'll have January 21st, 22nd, depending on what side of the globe you're on, it will herald in the water rabbit or the new moon that we'll be celebrating the beginning of the Chinese New Year with. And so again, more water. And the rabbit in and of itself is kind of, in many wisdom traditions, representing that fertility or new beginnings, the earth element. She burrows herself into her little nest in the ground. And so this is, again, kind of focusing on nourishing these roots, getting ourselves watered and grounded and landed. So come summer, sometime around the solstice when everything starts to fruit, we can start to really reap what we've sowed and gather those fruits off the branches, those nice ripe fruits. So we'll break this down a little bit more of why we think it's important to get grounded and what all the Uranian/Aquarian energy is that we're talking about. And we'll start it off again by referencing the Cancer full moon, January 6th. And just one day later, there is a Sun-Mercury conjunction. You want to speak to that?
Sun and Mercury have been crisscrossing each other's path. Mercury is always very close to the Sun. Even in your own birth chart, Mercury can only be one sign away from your Sun. And so Mercury is in retrograde, started in late December and is carrying through retrograde all the way until January 18th. And on January 17th, Mercury is crossing back over the face of the Sun. Mercury-Sun conjunction happens several times a year, and it's important because Mercury is communication, what we're thinking, what's going on in the mind, and the Sun is our personality, our persona. So whenever they come together, it's a chance to look at the sun. I mean, look at the mind and what's going on with our personal selves. This is happening in the sign of the later degrees of Capricorn. Capricorn has to do with our duties, our responsibilities, our karmas. I also like Capricorn as the goat fish. And in Greek, they referred to the dolphin as the goat fish because it's a mammal, it's playful, it swims around. And so Capricorn energy can be capricious, which means to be a little bit playful, a little bit exploratory, but having a good solid footing. It's like a goat can jump all around on a rocky cliff and be a little bit wild, but still is very attuned to its feet and what's going on. So this is a time to tune into your mind, your communication. And yes, there's things you need to do, but it's a little bit of that. I think it tunes in with the water rabbit. Water rabbit's creative. Goats are kind of playful and creative. So, have a vision of what you're creating right now.
And then we move on as we usually come across Mercury, Venus, and Mars, the smaller, closer in personal planets, have a lot of repetition in these monthly reports because they keep trining or squaring or conjuncting some of the bigger outer planets or the sun and the moon. And so it kicks off with Mercury trining Uranus on January 8th. So that's our first little taste of Uranus coming in. And as Michael said, Mercury is the communicator. Mercury at this point is still retrograde and in a trine with Uncle Uranus, that, party favor over there. So it's a little subdued. Mercury is subdued with its retrograde, and the trine can kind of tone down some of the crazy party tricks that Uranus can bring in and actually make it a little bit more harmonious so that it's a boon to your communication. So this might be these sudden ideas, these epiphanies that come in that are that have been percolating under the surface, and then suddenly you get that aha. All this right here at the beginning of the month, kind of kicking off with that Uranus energy, January 8th. And then Venus will move into, who is in Aquarius, another Uranian energy, because Uranus is home in the sign of Aquarius. So anytime that we're referencing Uranus, you're also, in a sense, kind of activating or talking about Aquarian energy because they share their same qualities. So Venus in Aquarius is going to be in a trine with Mars, who at this point is still retrograde, but the very next day is going to go direct. So it's kind of putting on the brakes. It's trining with Venus in the sign of innovation. And we all know the Mars and Venus story. I mean, there's this unreconciled love that's been ongoing since time immemorial between these two. And here they're having a little trine or a harmony between them just before Mercury shifts and goes direct here. So enjoy that January 9th day for letting a balance or a harmony come between the masculine and the feminine energies of yourself or other, or even just within the whole communal experience of life. Like there's going to be a little bit of harmony between the yin and the yang on that day. And then we go on, talk about Mars direct after a long spell of retrograde.
Mars has been retrograde for 2 months, but Mars is in the sign of Gemini for 7 months. That's unusual. Mars usually only spends 2 months in a sign, but since it went forward, back and forward, it's taking 7 months in Gemini, which is a long traverse. So Mars will go direct on January 9th, but it won't leave its own shadow, meaning the same January 12th, excuse me, thank you. It won't leave its shadow until middle of March. And so while it's going forward, it's going to go back over all the ground it retrograded. But this is a big energy shift. Mars is the least frequent of the retrograding planets. It happens once every 2 years. So last time it retrograded was 2020. And it holds a lot of energy around masculine and potency and presence and being in open-heartedness. And so when Mars is released from its retrograde, Mars is pretty happy about that. Like Mars is a go-getter, wants to go forward, wants to put initiation and desires into the world. And while it's not going to be a full sprint on January 12th, between the 12th and middle of March, we'll get some steam rolling on what we feel we're able to do. And it's going to feel like a big lightening up from the past 2.5, 3 years almost. March will be the 3-year point of when we had the shutdowns and the closures and all the whatnots.
And this particular planet going direct, Mars going direct, is the first of 3 during this report that will go direct. So there's a big shift of these planets this month making a forward motion, like let's take charge, let's go forward, let's move into this new year with a direct focus. And Mars is a significant one, as Michael has already said, for us to kick off the year with going direct. And I think one of the things that we talked about in the past is Mars retrograde for, as he said, 2 months, has given us a chance to really pause and look at our masculine energy as a collective and individually to say, okay, how do I want to shift? So when we do go direct on the 12th of January, how do I want to take this forward? And another way to think of your masculine energy, instead of saying masculine and feminine, you could say your solar channel and your lunar channel. And for the last 2,000 plus years, we've been really solar channel dominant. We've been very masculine focused, like let's drive, let's get it done, let's go. We've been highly competitive, we're driven. We feel like there's a lot of initiative for us to take responsibility for our lives, or at least it seems like we're supposed to be successful. We got to get that 401k. We need to have a really good zip code that we live in. We need to have that fancy car. The social status, all of that has been driven by this solar channel or masculine energy. Then we take a time out, as Michael pointed out, it's been kind of a longer stint for Mars to be, I don't want to say stymied, but kind of timed out in the sign of Gemini and also in that retrograde. And now we're moving forward again. So as we, get back on the horse and we're going to yeehaw, where are we going? Have clear focus of how you would like to direct that solar channel. How would you like to be in charge of your power? How would you like to hold the reins to that masculine energy? And have a clear focus going into this new year. I think that's an important piece for us to really look at right now. All right, well, we've belabored Mars going direct, but that's a big one. And then the next couple days later, January 14th, Venus, who I have already said is in Aquarius, is going to square Uranus. So Venus is in the home sign of Uranus, and they're going to square to each other. What do you think about that? I think that's kind of spooky.
That is a spooky one. Venus has a lot to do with values and finance and with food and things from the earth. And it's interesting because Uranus is in Venus's home sign. So they're in
Taurus.
They're in the opposite person's house, and they're in a little bit of conflict. So I kind of think of it as a standoff where it's best that nobody really does anything because if Venus messes up the house of Uranus, he can go mess up her house, and so it's kind of
our house, Earth.
Yeah.
By the way.
And so it's a kind of a time to maybe realize how to better nurture Earth and how to come into a better relationship. Like, what I feel this is all about is if we are greedy and harmful and just taking from the earth, we're taking from ourselves and harming ourselves. And maybe we get an understanding or a taste of that better, where we are all one, to use back to Lakota. Katrina used Miniwachoni for water, and the Lakota word for their greeting of each other is Mitakioisen, which is all beings are my relations. We're all in harmony with each other. So I feel like this is a good day to remember that, or we will be reminded of that we're all connected. There's no separation.
And on that day, we're having an Astrology 101 workshop January 14th. It's a Saturday from 1 to 3 here at the studio, and we can zoom you in too if you'd like. But if you would like to get some basics or fundamentals of what it means when something squares, or what it means when houses are holding the reciprocal planets in it, we'll explain that all a little bit more on that day that's trying to maybe equalize or harmonize some of those crossfires.
Good plug.
So then moving on, another planet, as I said, 3 will be going direct this time. The next one going direct is on January 18th, and that's Mercury going direct. So we're back into that smoother flow of communication. And the sun will also be conjuncting Pluto at the same time. So what do you feel about those guys?
I feel like that's a lot of forward motion. All of this is happening in Capricorn. Mercury, Sun, and Pluto are all in Capricorn. This is all close to the final degrees. This is some of the last time that Pluto is spending in Capricorn for 248 years. In March, Pluto will go into the sign of Aquarius. Uranus is home. And then retrograde back at the end of the year to hit those last degrees. So I think anything that is passing over those last 28, 29 degrees of Capricorn this year are very important to pay attention to. For the astrology that's happening, but anything in your chart that may be in the final degrees of Capricorn are worth having a look at, or even if you don't have a planet there, whatever house it's in, there's going to be a lot of crucial activity happening around that point.
So at the beginning of this report, Michael said that this report is actually kind of a little preview into what the whole year is. And if you can get through this month, you can probably make a stand for the whole year. And this is a little bit of what he's talking about. This is a little taste of what really March is the kickoff of some of this bigger energy. As we round up the Capricorn energy, because after Capricorn we move into Aquarius, and Pluto is going to take that big step into that Aquarian sign. And this is a big, I don't think we can emphasize enough how big this energy shift is going to be for the collective as well as for the individuals. But one thing I would say about it is this little taster is a good place for us to really test some of our ideas out in. Like right now when we're with Sun conjunct Pluto on that 18th, it gives us an idea, a little bit of what it's going to be like to our soul self. Let me back up. The sun is how we show up in the world, how we present, your personality, your radiance, your glow. It's who you are, what other people see. And then Pluto is the soul of your being. And they're coming together, and what we want them to be congruent. We want our soul self and how we show up in the world to be, in unison. Sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes we present one face, one mask, and then internally there's a whole other dialogue or narrative going on. And so this conjunction of the two on the 18th is, and Mercury direct, so communication forward, is saying present yourself. Present yourself for who you are. Be that authentic person. And this is kind of a little opportunity to practice before we move into this whole new paradigm. When Pluto crosses into Aquarius, it'll be an energy shift for that planet after 248 years in Capricorn. So, practice stepping into your authenticity even more so than you already do. I know you already are very authentic, but this is like, ta-da! It's a ta-da moment. And play with it, have fun. It's a practice run before we go into this bigger new stage coming up soon in 2024, really.
And I think that ta-da moment continues through as the sun goes into Aquarius on the 20th.
The next day.
And so it's a lot of Aquarius-Uranus energy this year. And then the 21st is the new moon in Aquarius, so it's sun in Aquarius, new moon. That's the official start of the Water Rabbit New Year for the Chinese zodiac. And then the next day on the 22nd, the planet Uranus goes direct. So it's all this Aquarius-Uranus energy moving forward, starting, beginning, and as Katrina said, putting a taster in for this cycle with Pluto that's happening. And just to go back to the water rabbit, her correspondence in the Chinese zodiac is the moon goddess Chang'e. If we go Mayan, it's Ixchel. And it has a lot to do with abundance and nourishment and harmony and peace and contentment. And the water piece is intuitive and knowing and supportive. And so, like we said, this year isn't quite landed, but we have a lot of positive feelings about it.
And this is halfway through the report for this month. You know, when we hit the new moon, you're halfway through between the full moons, you know. And so this is really where I feel the theme kicks in strongest, where at this point, at that new moon time, really water the roots, because there is so much Aquarian, Uranian energy, sun moving into Aquarius, and the Uranus direct, that's the third planet going direct, all happening at this time. It's like, hold on, ground down, because it's going to be like a whirlwind of energy. It's like going to a really great rave. If you're not a little bit grounded, you're going to be flying out into the cosmos. So you have to do some preliminary work. And then you can really, you know, let yourself go when you feel safe and have fun and fly high, but get grounded first. Nourish those roots so that you can harvest the fruits a little bit later. So, as we said, halfway through the report, and happy birthday to all the Aquarians out there on that 20th of January. We begin their month. And then Uranus direct on the 22nd. So now all three, Mars, Mercury, and Uranus, are all direct.
All planets are direct at this point. It hasn't been this way since April 2022. So
nice. Forward motion. Forward motion. All the more reason to root down, though. Things are going forward. Yeah, putting it into gear. And then right after that, Venus is going to move into the sign of Pisces. It's been in Aquarius, so some of that Aquarian energy. And now it's going to move into the watery sign of Pisces. And I love Venus and Pisces together so much, but there's a lot of potential for getting lost. Lost in love, lost in your emotions, lost in, just life, just getting kind of washed out into the sea on this amorous intent about things. So really important, again, to nourish those roots, find home base, get grounded, and then let your Venus energy move into Pisces and feel that magic. Piscean energy is the spiritual aptitude of your heart, really. And Venus moving into it is like a double whammy for the heart. Like, love completely. Fall in love with your life. Fall in love with yourself. Fall in love with all that is. It's a magical, wonderful time with Venus moving into Pisces. And let yourself just kind of float, but be aware of being too carried away with some things on that. And then we have on January 27th, Mercury will square with Chiron. So this is your communication. Again, your expression is going to square with your wounds. And so there could be potential for a little conflict, particularly with others, because it's the communicator. So sometimes this might be a little sensitive time, but it's also a good time to work through some of those sensitivities and let the communication, because Mercury is direct, let the communication flow and have a strong foundation if some things need to be expressed that are difficult. Take your time and wordsmith it out so there's not so much conflict. And then coming up to the end of the month, we have January 29th. A couple things there. We have Sun trining Mars and Mercury trining Uranus. Those are big. What do you think?
Very supportive energies, harmonic energies, good geometry that day or that phase or portal. Sun and Mars working together. Sun's in Aquarius, which is visionary, and that Mars now in forward motion is your desire for things and what you want to put your energy towards in communication. So this could be a chance to really communicate and have forward motion on some vision that you're working on, or something that's been very forward thinking or star-like or beyond what you used to think was possible. And then the Mercury trine Uranus supports that even more. It's the mind able to pull down some of these higher concept things of visions and other planetary ideas or things that are coming in from you that don't seem like they fit inside the box. Because Mercury is in Capricorn still, and so he can help you, or that energy can help you really ground it into reality and make it seem like this is possible and doable.
And it's perfect timing because Imbolc is just a couple of days later on February 2nd. And Imbolc on the calendar, if you take, winter solstice and summer solstice on the horizontal or on the verticals, and then you take the equinoxes, fall and spring equinox, that makes the cross. But then the other points on the wheel are Imbolc, Samhain, Beltane, and Lammas. And so these are the quarter turns. And after winter solstice at the top, the next one we come to is Imbolc. And that's the midpoint between equinox and solstice. And really what I love the images that I get for this, because it's like, at winter, everything is in its death stage. It's dropped to the ground, it's buried under the earth, all those little acorns and such are all underground, and they're hibernating, and they're preserving and conserving their energy. But at Imbolc, they begin to turn towards the light. Those little seeds, those little acorns, your little tulip bulbs that are in the ground, they begin to turn underground. They just intuitively know what to do, and they point themselves so that they can sprout up through the dirt and come up to seek the light. They just all begin to shift and turn. All the little snakes in the ground that are buried and hibernating, they begin to jostle and turn in the earth and make their way, not coming forth yet. They're just making their way. They're doing a subtle little turn. So that really potent energy, those trines with the sun trining Mars and Mercury trining Uranus, is like our ideas that we have, that we begin to turn them towards the light. So come spring, they can sprout and blossom and eventually become the fruit that hangs ripe on the trees in the summertime that we want to harvest. So all the more reason for us to nurture these roots so that we can harvest the fruits. Everything's going to shift and turn and make their way a little bit towards the light at that February 2nd Imbolc. And then the final piece is February 3rd, and that's the sun, which is in Aquarius, will be in a square to Uranus, that's in the sign of the bull or Taurus. And what do you think of that one? I think that's also a little spooky.
It's spooky. Uranus is sudden revelations, and they can be revealed either by, oh my gosh, amazing, can't believe this. I didn't understand this before, but now I see something that I never knew. Or it's traumatic, it's like, holy crap. But either way, it reveals something that was formerly unavailable to our psyche to see, and it's like a lightning strike coming down. And so, this is kind of a Shaktipat day. The revelation is coming down to awaken the personal self. Something is available in the field that is beyond your current knowing. And it's not even something you know you don't know. You don't even know what you don't know, what you're about to be revealed. That's Uranus. That's why it's such a shock and awe when it comes around, because you don't even expect it. So, I don't know.
Anything goes
Anything
on that
goes.
day. And that's the day that we take off on our train ride. All aboard. We're going to Glenwood Springs. And then we wrap it up on the full moon down there. We'll be soaking under the full moon in Glenwood Springs. It's the Leo full moon, full of creativity and playfulness on February 5th. And that's where we'll pick you back up at. In the meantime, have a beautiful new beginning to your new year, bringing in the Chinese New Year on the 21st and Imbolc on February 2nd. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Namaste.
To love, the love inside your heart. Victory to the light that shines in your mind. Earth, sky, and stars, 10,000 suns shine within us all. Give praise to the one. Victory to love, the love inside your heart. Victory to the light that shines in your mind. Earth, sky, and stars.